I can think of three things that ruin the country right now off the top of my head. Jingoism, nationalism, and blind capitalism. Jingoism and nationalism is often confused with patriotism, and blind capitalism is confused with the free market and good things. But lest we forget, blind capitalism led to the Great Depression, which led to a leader like Franklin D. Roosevelt creating the New Dealers. But I have a feeling if the market crashes again into another Great Depression, we won't see the likes of Roosevelt to save us from it. Okay, so unless you've been living under a rock or just don't give a hot damn or know nothing about tech, you've heard about the hashtag Meltdown and Spectre kernel flaws that are affecting Intel, AMD, and ARM CPUs. It's a huge issue, so if you know about it, you don't need me giving you a recap. If you don't know, there are better channels to go to that go more in depth.
CPUs since 1995 are vulnerable to Meltdown and Spectre. So these flaws, these are two different flaws in CPUs. One has to do with branch prediction. A branch in a program is when you get to something like an if statement, and so if this happens or if this other thing happens, and you don't know, the computer is set to branch at that if statement, and so it can execute code down both chains. And there's also speculative execution where maybe your program is running along and it needs to get something from main memory. That actually takes a long time, upwards of 100, 150, maybe 200 cycles of the CPU. So it'll look at the rest of the work in its queue, the upcoming instructions, and it'll try to go ahead and execute those instructions while it's waiting on that operation from main memory. And by exploiting those two properties of a CPU, which are essential for a CPU to actually have decent performance, at least a modern CPU, it turns out that you can leak information about stuff in memory that you're not supposed to have access to. Like a user program could use those features of a CPU to learn something about system memory. And this is a really big deal.
And one of the important things about Google figuring this out is that Google has known about this since June. Now, somebody else found it. Google was, they were doing the whole bro thing with Intel, and they were like, hey, we found this. You need to get on top of it.
You shouldn't leave too much to chance. But on the other hand, all of the fixes that Windows has released, and then there's the things that Intel's released. I didn't even look into the Intel ones yet, but the Windows ones I was going through, and it can be quite confusing for anyone that isn't really hyper tech savvy. So most people are probably waiting for the Windows update. And for those of you that have been waiting for the Windows update, good on you. Because those people who immediately jumped and downloaded the fixes for the Windows update, the ones who have AMDs, sorry to say, the update bricks a lot of AMD systems, like literally game over. So more shit hit the fan as soon as the Microsoft updates came out. Microsoft has stopped the update for now and is blaming AMD's documentation. So now there's finger pointing everywhere going on. I digress. I'm not going to do any sort of tech behind this because that's not really the main point of what I was doing here. What I found interesting is during all of this, I walked away for a bit because reading the news is just like, you know what? I want to play some video games. I have a personal life going to shit. I don't want to read any more miserable crap. Intel's CEO sold 39 million in company shares prior to the disclosure of the CPU security flaws. A security flaw in Intel CPUs recently came to light, and the company did its best to downplay, even as it put releasing a comprehensive statement amid rising concerns about the possible performance impact of the fix. It's impossible to quantify how bad the situation actually is at the earliest point, although obviously it's not ideal. Here's the fucking weird thing about the Intel fix. From what I've seen personally, some of the people who installed the fixes and whatnot on their Intel CPUs, like 4790K, I happen to have one. I was looking at the results. It wasn't too bad, actually. And then other people, it was a huge drop-off in performance. It all depends on your workflow. And as I assume, most people on my channel are gaming. So if you're gaming, this really isn't going to affect you. So, not too much. It won't really matter to you. You really probably won't notice it. But people use the computers for more stuff, like, I guess, businesses, if you happen to have a server or cloud or whatever, might start ditching the Intel CPU. So if you're in the market looking for an amazing CPU for dirt cheap, now might be the time to get on eBay, man. You might be able to get a Xeon processor or something for peanuts. Hell, somebody might give you a fucking blowjob and a reach around. Gundam, that doesn't make sense. Now, Brian Krasanich, who's an Intel CEO, unloaded millions of dollars of his Intel shares, the maximum amount he could drop off, the maximum amount he was allowed to sell. You see, I think he could only sell so many and to keep like, what, 24,000 or some crap like that shares for himself, so that way he could hold his position at his job. So Intel's representatives told Mark Watch that the sales were unrelated to the security vulnerabilities, and the sale was made as prior of 10B5-1 plan, which, as Investopedia explains, is a mechanism that helps corporation insiders avoid accusations of insider trading by setting up plans to sell predetermined numbers of shares at a predetermined time. It's all a little bit too convenient.
I, like God, do not play with dice and do not believe in coincidence.
It seems just a little too convenient that he just knew when to drop it. And there are people who actually defended this, you know. That's probably one of the reasons why I kind of walked away, because I was actually seeing stuff on the internet of people going, we don't know the situation. It's just people with their pitchforks, blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of like, I think they'd fucking know.
Is that Google has known about this since June. Now, somebody else found it. Google was, they were doing the whole bro thing with Intel, and they were like, hey, we found this. You need to get on top of it.
Brian Krasanich is a smart fucking guy. I mean, Google him. See what the fuck he's done for Intel. I think he's like a chemical scientist as well. I'm pretty sure this motherfucker has life set up like a chessboard, and he's 10 moves ahead. He probably saw this coming a mile away, knew how the laws work, and skinnamarink-dinky-dink, skinnamarink-doo, I just sold some bullshit to you, and made himself a shit ton of money and walked away scot-free. I know this channel is kind of veering away from games and almost becoming like I'm some sort of soundboard against corporate greed and all this other bullshittery. But I want to harken it back to the whole Equifax leak. You see, even when the Equifax executives sold all their shares before the hack was announced, they still didn't call it insider trading. And believe me, these guys knew ahead of time, like 6 months, wasn't it? Didn't they know like 6 months ahead of time before it was even released to the public that this shit was gonna hit the fan? And I can't remember if they sold 6 months ahead of time or 2 weeks ahead of the time when it was announced. But anyway you slice it, under any other normal circumstances, I don't know, any other rational country, we look at this as insider trading, and somebody's balls would be hammered to the fucking wall. But when it's white collar crime, nobody does the time, ever. Except in the case of Martha Stewart. When she got caught with insider trading, she did go to jail, but here's the thing there, alright, here's the caveat. Oh God. V for fucking Vendetta over here. Back before 9/11, George Bush was also implicated. Actually, he was involved in the insider trading that also Martha Stewart was in. They were both saving their asses millions of dollars. Now here's the thing though. Bush was supposed to go to court for that. Supposed to. He never did. Because 9/11 just conveniently happened not long after that. All of a sudden our FBI and CIA can't seem to fucking pinpoint terrorists. It reminds me of something a black comedian Eddie Griffin once said. You're telling me that they can't find Osama bin Laden, but they can find my Uncle Junebug hiding out in Compton. Point noted, 9/11 happens, our president can't go to trial for insider trading, America needs the commander-in-chief, we have to fight the war on terror. Years later, he never went to court for it. And Martha Stewart had to take the fall. Somebody had to take the fall for that because it was too fucking high profile. And George Bush walked away scot-free. Completely scot-free. I mean, it's just weird how insider trading and these sort of actions are just justifiable. People just let it slide. But some guy getting high off an ounce of pot goes right to jail. And this motherfucker isn't hurting the economy. This motherfucker isn't fucking a whole bunch of people by selling them stock at one price. And then all of a sudden the news drops and the stock fucking plummets in price. All of a sudden you just got. And this motherfucker's drinking a nice fucking, I don't know, Long Island iced tea, looking at the new yacht he's probably gonna buy. And nobody bats an eye at this level of high profile corruption. But the average cocksucker can't even scratch his balls wrong outside in public without indecent exposure and getting arrested. I don't know what the fuck is wrong. Point being, this doesn't make Intel look good at all. I mean, if there was ever more a clearer sign that the people at Intel don't give a shred of a fuck, this is probably it. And you know what's really funny about it all? Nobody's gonna care in a little bit. Like, give this 3-4 weeks, everybody forget. Just like everybody forgot Equifax. Equifax fucked up royally and is perfectly fine. Everybody's just fine with it now. Hell, they even got some new contracts with the US government and shit. And I know, a lot of people sit there and start calling me social justice warrior for this sort of shit. And I don't even fucking understand why. I'm sitting here telling you that the capitalists are becoming overly greedy, and it's fucking with the economy, it's fucking with the system, it's fucking with everything. And on top of that, don't put too much blind faith in capitalism. Do not. These motherfuckers at the top are watching your every move. I mean, everything you do, your online purchases, if you fucking retinal scan shit or finger scan shit, they got that down. It's all in some sort of cloud. They can track your every fucking move. They know what shit you're buying from Amazon, whether you like blue tablets or green for your toilet, or the preferable lube you use with your dragon dildo.
And the more transactions we see, the more individual identities we can recognize, and the stronger our network becomes. The largest, most powerful digital identity network on the planet. Which means that with threat metrics driving your decisions, your business will be more secure and profitable now than it was even just a minute ago. Threat Metrics, the digital identity company.
To threat metrics, digital IDs are a collection of the personas that you create as you use the internet. So, everybody in this room has probably from threat metrics a digital ID. There's 3.5 billion people that use the internet every day. We know something about 1.4 billion of them. In the United States alone, we are tracking right now 175 million people. ThreatMetrics updates its database 80 million times a day. Every time a customer uses, a consumer goes to one of our customers and executes a transaction, that adds to the database. So it's highly dynamic, and it's extremely operative in real time. It's really very nice. I want to talk a little bit, though, if I might, just for another couple of minutes, on digital IDs and how they're constructed, and because they're really a new thing. When I sit down with customers and I say, I don't need to know your name to know who you are, it opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. So for example, only 20% of the Chinese population has a known address, but I have a 75% customer recognition rate in China. I have a 95% customer recognition rate in Russia. But here in the United States, we don't really know a lot about those people, but I do because of the digital identities that we have.
But I feel like we have to preface this story by saying there were a lot of people in the comments. It might have been one of our most commented things for like a particular topic, because there were a lot of comments that told us that there is no way that what we said would happen in that episode of the news so long ago would happen has in fact now happened. And that is the personal data of a billion Indians has been sold online. It's about $6 or 6 British pounds per record, I think. And so that national database that was being put together, yeah, you can just buy access to it.
So if you don't remember the national database, there were a lot of little tiny municipalities, because you think about India is like some huge cities and then just jungles and little farming villages, and there's a ton of sprawl where population density is low, and then big cities where population density is insane. And they said, you know what, we're going to get everybody in a database, and we're going to use
with
biometrics. Yeah. Eye scans and thumbprints. So literally people were like hiking through jungles to get eye scans and thumbprints in these little tiny municipalities that's scattered everywhere.
But yeah, no, we totally called it. If you build this ridiculous apparatus, it will be used against you at some point. That's why we're so afraid of the surveillance apparatus, is because if you build it, it will be used against you.
I don't need to know your name to know who you are.
These fuckers are watching your every move, and I'm sitting here telling you, I don't know, things are looking kind of fucked, and I'm greeted with, you fucking liberal SJW cook. And that ought to do it for me on that point, because I could go on forever with this sort of stuff, and I don't think anybody really wants this much depressing information in such a condensed period of time. Rate, comment, subscribe if you so choose. The more you that follow me makes my voice louder in an industry full of corporate shills, paid off YouTube presenters, so on and so forth, and people who don't have the balls, opinion, or courage to even stand up against anything. They'd rather ride a fucking fence and write open letters to people. I'm going to have some more Witcher videos coming out, since I just bought another copy of The Witcher 3, like a normal one that's going to stay vanilla from GOG. So that way when I do comparisons, I can truly show you the difference between mods, because I really hated, unmerging mods and scripts and shit like that just to do comparisons. It used to drive me insane to the point where I quit doing it. It's like, you want to know what the vanilla version looks like? Turn on your game. You know what vanilla looks like. Don't play with me. Oh, well, adios, muchachos. I hate this channel and I hate you. I want to see more video of the puppy and the puppet. Let's save this. Jesus Christ, my belly. The channel's so much better now. No, Billy. Juji, you're killing Billy. Juji, no. Send help.